Hello, good evening. Welcome to Talkin Kop. It's me, Chris Brack, and I'm here with Kev and Ashley. And we're going to take our opportunity to discuss Diogo Jota, with the tragic passing last week at a sad age of only 28, and also the loss of his brother Andre Silva at the age of 25. I've got to be honest, I've been doing podcasts now for about 3 years. This is something I never thought I'd have to do about a current player. And I think this would be good for us just to sort of say how we feel. So, Kev, welcome. Probably not the podcast, not the sort of podcast we expected to do, but all like I was probably similar to Gav on Sunday. Is when I heard the news, apart from hoping it wasn't true, all that came to my mind was that poor family.
Yeah, I don't know if it was you text me, but my phone, I had a text on my phone, and I was like, it was a Marca headline, and I just thought, nah, it's Marca, bullshit, and I didn't think anything of it. But I thought, nah, even some of the Spanish press, they're like, they don't joke about this. So I went online and searched it, and yeah, pretty instantly confirmed, and floored me, absolutely floored me. I had flashbacks of everything that's the last few years for me. That just overwhelmed me. I was numb on Thursday, just pure numb. I was reading the WhatsApp group, the WhatsApp groups that we're in. I was reading some of the other stuff as well, like the Telegram group and stuff. And the reaction was pretty much universal all the way through. It was a level of grief. And I think, look, none of us have ever met Diogo Jota. None of us have ever had any direct links with him whatsoever. But I think every single one of us can empathize. And, it's the story. It's his story of how in the modern day, these players, these idols of ours, live their lives generally on Instagram in public. So we get a glimpse into their lives. So we get a glimpse through LFC TV and the in-house studio work that they do. We get a glimpse of what they're like as people. And it's how relatable he is. The fact that at 28 years of age, 2 weeks beforehand, he was posting a video montage of his wedding. And I remember seeing it at the time. I was like, oh, he's living his best life. Wins the league, million people on the streets of Liverpool celebrating. He's sat on the top of the coach and, achieving a life goal. Marries his childhood sweetheart in front of his 3 kids. All his friends and family there, teammates there as well. To wake up to that on, a week tomorrow, a week ago tomorrow. It's cruel. It's absolutely cruel. I think Jose Mourinho hit the nail on the head. If there's a plan in this, I don't see it. Don't want to see it. I don't get it. But life is cruel. And you think of his family, you think obviously his parents with losing not one but 2 children. His wife is a widow and his children are going to grow up seeing their father on video and immortalized on YouTube with fainting memories of what his voice is. Thankfully for them, in this era, they'll be able to watch everything that he's ever been involved in and see his face, see his smile, see everything that he was. And it's just cruel. There's no other words to describe it. And for me, looking on, it was his story brought a level of grief to me that, and that's the only word I can describe it as. I'm not as articulate as some people who are, paid to do this, I can only describe it as grief. It's a level of grief. It's not like an immediate family who's lost an immediate family member, because trust me, I know what that one is as well. But that's the only association that I can put to it, and that's how it felt. And it was the same Thursday, it was the same Friday, and I think the funeral, when the funeral happened, it's like the funeral here. You know, in Ireland, when we have a funeral, it's usually after someone dies, 3 days, 2 days, maybe three. But in general, you have a wake, you have a removal, and then the next day you have the funeral, and it's really quick. And I remember people coming over from England who'd be used to maybe funerals happening a month later, and they'd be saying, "God, it's really harsh. You got to deal with all of that straight away." In Portugal, it's the same. It's really quick, and I think it's almost a case, and you have to deal with it because it's in front of you, and it's not going to get easier. But because it's in front of you, you deal with it, and you're surrounded by love and by people who will help you through it. And she was surrounded by friends and family who will help her get through it. And the players are going to need that. The players are going to need each other to get through this in a massive way, and they'll have each other. I think it's probably the unique thing about this, in a football sense, in a football environment. You have a dressing room camaraderie and a dressing room mentality. That dressing room is really good. It's really healthy, and they'll get each other through it the best way they can, because they've got to. And having to deal with something when it's in front of you focuses your mind that you have to get through it together, and hopefully that's what happens for them, and they'll get strength from that. But yeah, uh, devastation. It's just the litany of words you can use to describe it, but it all goes back to, you know when someone says thoughts and prayers, it's not. It's, I really feel for his family, and ultimately they're the ones who are going to have to come through it, and they will, because it's in front of them, and they will have to deal with it, and they'll deal with it. It's that's all you can do. Is plow through it, and it's not. I remember seeing comments online, and it was along the lines of, "I don't know how she'll cope. I don't know how she'll do this. I don't know how I would cope." When it lands on your doorstep, you deal with it. You find a way, and you find the best way for you, and you get through it. Because what other choice have you got? There's kids that depend on their mum, and their mum will get through for the kids, and she will find a way. She'll be supported all the way by us, by the fans, by the club, family, by everybody. But I don't know. It's what can you say? There's no words. There's no right words. I wish there was. I wish there was a book you get with this. There's like, on day 6, this is how it's supposed to be. Like,
Mm.
there's just, today, deal with that. Worry about tomorrow when it happens, and then deal with that. And that's all we're doing. We're sat there talking with each other in groups, saying, "How are you?" Checking in, making sure you're all okay, and just getting through the day, because life goes on. It just
Yeah.
does.
I mean, Ash, will get your thoughts on it, because obviously us three are in a WhatsApp group together, and we've all sort of said the same. Said, doesn't really feel real. This feels quite numb.
Yeah. I actually appreciate having a few days to kind of compose myself, because I don't think I could have come on here and talked about this in the direct aftermath. The first 2 days or so, I was just a wreck. I don't think I said anything to anyone. There's something really strange and unique about this situation, in that you have this person, like Kev said, that you have never met before. But I think Andy Cantwell put it this morning. He's like, I've never met him, but he mattered to me. And because he mattered to all of us, especially to us as a collective community, it feels like that grief is tangible. It feels like that grief is like a neighbor or a friend. we have this weird parasocial connection with him and with everyone that's at the club. We feel like we live and breathe these moments with them, and they carry us through these moments in our lives. A lot of times they help us get through the worst moments in our lives. And to have the tables flipped for me has been sort of just ground shaking, because I talked a little bit about this in our Telegram group. Like, this community of people, this chat, this show, just Liverpool in general, for me, is my place that I go to when my life falls to shit and when I have these moments of grief in my own personal life. I come here as a way to cope, and I look to these players as a way to almost process my own emotions. It's probably not healthy. It's not the best form of therapy in terms of, mental health professionals, but for me, it works. Talking to you guys, it works. Talking to everyone in the Telegram, it works. And I think the reason I had such a hard time coming on in those first 2 or 3 days is because it felt like my safe zone, my safe place, my bubble had been burst. And that instead of turning on Telegram and feeling like it was an escape, it was all of a sudden like this hammer that was kind of coming at me, being like, it's real, it's real, it's real. And, I'm all for, we're going to talk about him, we're going to memorialize him. But for me, in the immediate aftermath, I couldn't watch anything. I couldn't listen to anything. And maybe that makes me weak emotionally. I don't know. I think everyone processes these things differently. But I couldn't. I said to Chris in the first show on Sunday, I can't talk about him in the past tense yet. That was too hard for me on Sunday. And listening to the guys talk about it was too hard on Sunday. And it's hard explaining that to anyone that's outside of this bubble. It's hard justifying that to ourselves. I think the fact that we're trying to justify our grief as real or not real or appropriate or not appropriate, that bothers me, because I think grief in any expression is grief. And I think that judging people's grief is not appropriate. Everyone's going to handle this differently. Some people, are going to be hit harder than others. And it's not for me or any of us to judge that. But I guess my long-winded, I haven't even really mentioned him because I'm still coming to terms with it. But I'm just grateful for our community, grateful for the way that we're processing this. I'm grateful for these shows, and I'm hoping that everyone understands that this is our way of processing it as well. It's not because we're trying to dramatize anything or get clicks for anything. It's genuinely just us trying to work out our own emotions and trying to talk to you guys in the most honest way possible.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's weak, actually. It's everyone reacts to these things in different ways. I think me and Kev were talking earlier, saying like, I've only just been able to watch his goals back. I think I watched his goals back, and only yesterday I was able to watch his goals from last season. Because I got to the point where I would watch his goals until last season, then I turned it off. Because that felt a bit too real for me. A bit like, that's too close to the bone. Being fortunate to go to games at Anfield, I was at some of those games when he scored, the Tottenham one, where he scores the last minute winner. That sits with me all the time, and I remember the whole feeling of being in that ground and screaming for Diogo. I remember everything about that game, and yeah, that feels like it's something separate. So, Kev, this is a very unusual situation in terms of football. It's very rare you have this sort of a tragedy of losing a key player in the first team, at the peak of their football age. But the outpouring of emotion and eulogies to him from current players, Ali's, Kanate's, and Robbo's in particular, really struck a chord. But also, you can tell he was loved and very highly respected by rivals and former teammates. Ruben Neves pretty much flew halfway around the world to make sure he was there at his funeral. Richarlison, who we always make a figure of fun of with Everton connections, very classy the way he described him as like, yes, we were opponents, but he was highly respected and very much loved in the football world. And you're still seeing that now with a lot of Portuguese players doing the Diogo goal celebration. That's their sort of way of thanking it. I believe Ramos for PSG has done that tonight. It's
Yeah.
just everyone has their, it's trying to show their love and affection for the man.
It's one of those sporting moments when you look back at it. I was trying to think back. I suppose. See, the thing is, look, I play a lot of FIFA, right? And if someone passes away, if a player who's in the game passes away, they remove his item from the game and freeze the price that his card is at. And that might happen 3 or 4 times in a year, and that there's thousands of player cards in that game. So a footballer passing away while they're still current is rare. A sports star at the height of his powers, you're probably going back genuinely to maybe Ayrton Senna. There might be a couple in there that I'm not thinking, but Ayrton Senna to me was the one that shocked everyone. But that was a dangerous sport in a dangerous time. This is just completely different. When people look at him and you look at all the memories the players put up in the dressing room, it's always going to be about the player, not the footballer, but the guy, because that's who they know. He's their mate. They're all mates. You don't spend years with someone, 9 months of the year. It's like you spend more time with the people you work with than you do with your wife and kids, in a lot of respects, in a lot of ways. And it's no different to footballers. Yeah, granted, they're not in the AXA 9-10 hours a day. But at the same time, they live in each other's pockets. They're traveling all over the country, all over Europe with each other. And they're always in that zone, ultra competitive with each other. You're in a squad where you're not guaranteed to be playing. So you have to be fighting, yet these players are all in it together. They always were. And it's reflected in how they posted about him. Andy Robertson, the most British foreign player he's ever come across. Conor Bradley, similar. Queeveen Keller, similar. Right the way down the line, everyone. And ex-teammates, Henderson, Fabinho, Gini, all the way down the line. Look to his Wolves teammates. He joined Wolves when they were halfway up the championship. And he was one of the first in the influx of Portuguese players into the Wolves squad. What a gamble by him, to take a punt on coming into the second division in England to a club in the Midlands on the strength of what they might do. And he took his career by the scruff of the neck and he dragged himself all the way through it all the time. He eked out the absolute maximum he could out of his career, and he got himself right to the top. Won a Champions League, a Premier League. He's achieved what he's achieved. Look what he did with Portugal, won the Nations League. Always going to be a supporting star in that squad. Yet his work rate, the way the Portuguese players looked on him after what happened, and you can type whatever words you like, but you can't fake the emotion of standing for a minute's silence like João Cancelo, and it overwhelms you. It just overwhelmed these players, and that emotion is real. That loss is real, and that's not because Diogo goal. It's not because he's an elite number 9. He's an elite finisher. It's because he was a decent skin. He was just a decent guy, and nothing There isn't a bad word said about him. You know, and that's even before you even look at the player. You know, we'll get onto that in a minute. But as a person, as a human being, he's just an all-round good guy. Just an all-round good guy, an honest pro, an honest guy who lived his life, who was quiet. He didn't go searching for the limelight. He just went in, did his job to the best of his ability, scraped everything out of his career, went home to his wife and kids, threw the Xbox on, and chilled out playing FIFA. Do you know what I mean? It's not bad. It wasn't a bad life.
And he's quite often playing FIFA against football fans, wasn't he?
Do you remember when we were doing a show and Kev, his name was Clutch FIFA, he was a FIFA professional, and he used to come on with us. And I remember asking him, "Did you ever come up against Jota?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "How'd you know?" Back in the day, about 4 or 5 years ago, when EA were trying to push the game, he was mad into esports anyway, but they used to give all professional players who played FIFA to a decent level their own card. And it was a different card. It was a 99 rated card. It was max. It was the bomb, right? And Kev said that he logged in, seen the name, twigged, like, that's Diogo Jota's esports team. Okay, fair enough, cool. He's going to come up against one of their up-and-coming players or whatever. And then he's seen the lineup, and it's like Diogo Jota lined up, his 99 rated card lined up in midfield with R9 up front. And he's like, and he just like, shit. he reckons that because Jota was as good, he was as one weekend he finished 30-0 in the weekend league. That put him in the top 100 players in the world. He was an elite esports player, and that was just his hobby. Kev reckoned that if he was ever serious, and if he wasn't a footballer, and if he was ever serious about esports, he could have been one of the best esports players of FIFA in the world. He lived football. He loved the game. He loved everything about it. He loved the video game side of it. He loved the playing side of it, the training side of it. He was dedicated right the way through. You go back to when he was a kid, his parents were paying his subs to go and paying for him to be able to go and play. While he was a teenager, he wasn't at an academy. You know, that's the dedication. You know, he just loved life and he loved everything about the game. Again, they got back to it. It's just fucking cruel.
Yeah. But Ash, I don't know if you've seen it, but I thought Liverpool the other night did a tribute show to Diogo and his brother Andre, and I thought very classy. You know, hit the tone just perfectly. You know, emphasised how much the man was loved and cared for as a person, but also celebrated him as what he was, a great teammate, a great player.
Yeah, I'm the wrong person to come on this because I couldn't watch it. I turned it on for about 2 minutes and I'm not there yet. I'm not there I'm the person that took 6 months to even watch Klopp's exit interview. I'm the type of person that I don't watch like the last episode of a TV series because I'm sad to say goodbye to it. And so to say goodbye to someone that matters, like I said, that I care about, having not met him, it's going to take me more than 3 or 4 days to do that. I'm glad they put it out because I think that there are people that is a balm to them and that does feel necessary and that's their way of processing grief and emotion and things like that. But like I said, everyone processes this differently and I am not one of those people. I will get to that eventually. For me, my way of kind of remembering him is literally just in my mind, replaying the tiny little moments, like the moments that aren't the goals or the football or the anything. It's him just wearing his game-winning jersey at the end of the season, just riding his bike around town, and not taking that jersey off because he's just so incredibly proud to wear it. That's what I'm remembering right now. I've seen clips and interviews. I think the club is handling this really, really well. I saw a lot of the memorials that were dropped off, a lot of the flowers that were dropped off. Like that outpouring of love, that visual outpouring of love outside of Anfield has been like nothing I've ever seen. And to think of someone being that loved and that just cared for by people old and young, and Liverpool fans and Wolves fans and Portugal fans and all of the fans of the teams in Portugal that he played for before he even came here. We had so many people from every single club imaginable on that Sunday show. It's just pulling people together in a way that I have not seen in years. And I think it was the Anfield Wrap. They were talking about like the mementos that were being left behind, like the little FIFA, or the Xbox controllers and things like that. The little kids' jerseys, the gifts that were being given back by people that were like, I don't know you, but I want to give something back. And they were talking about it with such reverence, and that hit a chord with me. And that's enough. Like, I'm not ready to watch the videos, but that's enough for me to kind of take a step back and just sort of just think a little bit. Think about the kind of man that would have that kind of outpouring of love, and think about how that's such a success in and of itself of life. To be that kind of person and to be respected across the board, and to go out on such a high, which it feels incredibly cruel on the one hand, but at the same time, it's like, I'm so glad he got to marry her. I'm so glad he got to have the wedding. I'm so glad he got to live the dream, and he got to win the Premier League trophy with fans. I'm so glad he got to do that with Portugal as well. I'm so glad that he had those moments and he went out on such a high, because he lived moments that we can only dream of. That for us, we live vicariously through him. And there's this quote that's like, the brightest stars burn the shortest. And that's what I keep kind of referring back to with him, where it's like, he led such a full life for being 28 years old. And it's the tragedy of it all, but it's also just looking at him. I just can't imagine like a better send-off for anyone, in the sense that like everyone has just made their feelings on him so clear. And he's clearly just an incredibly wonderful individual, and he just made his mark on the world, and I don't think he's ever going to be forgotten. And it's its own kind of heroism. Like, it's sad when people pass away at such a young age, but they tend to live on in memory, and I think he will live on forever. And there's something about that that's just so beautifully tragic at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, Kev, I haven't seen this part of it, but you said Billy Hogan did a very touching and lovely eulogy for Diogo in the last day or so, wasn't it?
It was released tonight. He basically, you've seen them all. One, a group at a time will come out and lay a wreath or a bouquet of flowers at Anfield. You've seen it from the LFC women's team. You've seen it from the ground staff, the ex-players, John Aldridge. You've seen it with Arne Slot, Cody Gakpo today, and Billy Hogan. Billy Hogan spoke, I'd say, if it felt like about 20 minutes, but it was probably about 6 or 7 minutes. And it was just pure, raw, real emotional stuff. It was real, that's Billy Hogan. I think we got a close glimpse there of what Billy Hogan as a person is. And it was articulate and poignant in what he was saying. I'd encourage anyone when they feel ready to watch it and to take in what he was, just take it in. And I think the club have reacted to this pretty well. I expect nothing less, to be honest. I think the club, when it comes to stuff like this, tend to get the tone right, and they've done us as fans I think they've done us as fans proud. I think they've reflected our feelings in what they're doing. And as cruel and inhumane as it might feel like right now, but the world goes on, football will carry on. They will go back to pre-season and they'll go into next season and onwards and onwards. But actually, you made a point about him; he'll be immortalized. Fans will be singing Diogo Jota's song in 100 years. And there are kids that haven't been born who are going to take their kids to Anfield and sing about Diogo Jota. And they're going to turn around and who was Diogo Jota? Well, come here till I tell you. And they will sit down and they will, I remember him. See, when he did this, I can remember that. And he will always and forever be a Liverpool player. Always and forever. He didn't retire. He wasn't transferred. Sadly, his life was taken. His life was cut short. But that song will be sung at Anfield and around the grounds for long after we're gone. That's his legacy. His children are his legacy, but his immortality is immortalized in that song. And for days, I can't get it out of my head. I cannot. I could be sat there doing the dishes and I'm singing it in my head, and I'm tone deaf. I can't sing a note, but I hear that song in my head all the time. I cannot get it out. I could be doing the most mundane things, and it's there in the back of my head. And I want it there. I don't want it to go. That's subconscious thing that you carry it with you, internalize it, talk about it, but it's always there. He's always going to be a part of the way I look at Liverpool and the memories he's given me as a fan. But the story I've been lucky enough to be able to watch. We've been able to do post-match shows about how many times Jota has saved us, or post shows about will he ever find his form? What's going on with the injury? He's just been there. He's been a constant thing with us when we've been talking about the club, and it's good. That's good as well. It's like everyone you can look back at all the good stuff and all. He would drive you nuts at times because you knew how good he was. You just please. When he comes back from injury, it's going to take a couple of days. It's going to take a couple of weeks for him to get back up to full fitness. Will that time ever hurry up and go past so we can get back to having Jota in front of the goal and relax again?
He did have that lovely habit though of scoring on his return.
Oh yeah,
he always had that lovely habit for us. I know. Look, the football is less important than the man, but we should talk about him. Our memories of him on the pitch, because to be fair, that's how all of us remember him and know him, and have our unique memories of him. What made things totally Diogo, and some of it wasn't even the goals. We'll talk about the goals, but I think the way he approached the game, he backed down from no one. He loved to scrap. He loved to fight on the pitch. Probably why he picked up so many injuries, because he'd take on the centre half. Didn't mind having a centre half land on his chest. He'd just jump back up and go at him again. And I like that thing where I think what endeared him, I still remember it to this day, is that winning penalty in the shootout against Leicester. Because we all knew what Leicester fans were singing. And I love the fact his candid interview after he said, oh, was it just a bit of emotion? He goes, no, I said, I heard they were singing. They were annoying me as well. I said, so I was going to stick it to him. And I thought, that's kind of how a fan thinks. And I think that's why you connected with him, because he spoke and acted like how a fan would, because that's how we would play, isn't it, Kev?
Yeah, we'd run through brick walls like we think we can, and we can't. We're not better than Figo, don't you know? But it's when he signed for us, all the fanfare was about Thiago. But when he signed for us, it was like, wow, didn't see that one coming. How good? Where's he going to fit? You have Firmino, Salah, Mane, what is he, backup? We'd seen him at Wolves. We knew how good he was. So I didn't think he was coming in for backup. And then he started sharpening his elbows. And like, I know this front three is like the best in the league, and it's been phenomenal. Wait until you see what I can do.
He pushed Bobby out basically, which took, let's be fair, took some doing. But that's how good he was. I mean, scores 7 minutes into his debut. And that was a tough join for him, wasn't it, actually? Because, his first season was the COVID season. So, he had to wait a year to experience the fan base. But he just loved big goals. I mean, from you, what sort of your big Diogo memories, goals, or how he was?
I mean, he was such an interesting player in that I feel like we would always say, like, that he wasn't in a game until he was, and until he made it his. And he would go a whole game almost being invisible until he popped up at the exact right moment, whether it's his last goal at Everton or any of the other goals that he scored. I mean, I just feel like he had this knack for studying the game and understanding. I felt like he was playing FIFA on the pitch, is the best way I could explain it. It's like he needed a little while to kind of study what the opponent was doing. And then at the very end, when kind of all hope was lost, he would understand where everyone was going to be and then come up with this just clutch goal, which you're like, you haven't been doing anything for 90 minutes. And then all of a sudden you do that. Why can't you do that for like the whole game? And I think it's because he was studying the game for the whole time. And it's like he needed that time to process and get there. And he was so intelligent. He was so smart. And I think the thing that, one of the things that makes me so sad is that we won't get to see that in manager form, because I think he'd be so, so good as a football manager. Just in terms of the intelligence and the awareness, he always strikes me as sort of the embodiment of that never say die Liverpool attitude, where it's like, I trust that someone's going to pull it out. I don't know who it's going to be, but someone will. And since Jota got here, 9 times out of 10, it was him. And to come into that kind of established, lauded, historic front three and, come in without an ego and be able to force himself in there, but not force himself with elbows, just force himself because he's good at what he does. Like, he didn't step on anyone's toes. He didn't have an ego that was bigger than anyone else's. He just was good. And it's sort of like what Mourinho was saying, where it's like, he didn't want to be in the spotlight, but he was, because that's who he was. He was so good that the spotlight followed him. And I was actually surprised by the player that we got. Like, I watched him at Wolves and I was impressed, but he was streaky. And he would have these moments, these little purple patches where he'd get like 10 goals and he'd be like, wow, who's this guy? And then he'd get quiet again. And to have him come and really establish himself in the way that he did, it's like Pete says, he wasn't big or powerful, but he played like a giant. Like, the way that he could head a ball for being such a tiny dude.
He loved a header.
He loved a header. He loved a towering header.
I think O'Sheen says, I think there's one of the other tribute shows, I can't remember, Liverpool or the Anfield Wrap, they were saying, like, I think he's in the top 10 for headed goals since he joined Liverpool.
Yeah.
It's like, that he's like training with Ronaldo at Portugal, and he's getting some sort of like fancy tips on how to jump high and how to do all these things, because it's amazing. It's amazing to watch him. And, my mother's Portuguese, and, we do watch the Portuguese national team, and it's always Ronaldo. It's always him. And much the same as what I'm talking about with the front three, it's like Jota never complains. He sits there, he comes on when needed. And when he comes on, he makes an impact. And, I just, for someone that was just kind of always there in the background, like, he knew how to stamp his authority on it, even despite that. It's like, so often, so much of us feel like we need to just be too much and we need to like steal the spotlight from other people. He wasn't that. Like, he did his business. The spotlight came to him because he was that good. And his character, I guess, just shines not only in the way he plays, but in everything else as well.
No, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the nicest one thing that probably typifies him as a footballer was one of the plaques that was left at Anfield, which was just bring on Jota.
Yeah.
And if anything sort of summed Jota up as a person from last season, Kev, was I think it was his last headed goal for the club, and it was the big one away at Forest. Literally came on the pitch. You're like, oh, great, Jota's on now. First touch, header, equaliser, and that was like first versus second at the time.
Yeah, Costa's first touch with the corner and Jota first touch with header. But it was glaring when I watched the goals. His positional spatial awareness sense, his positional sense to be in the box and to find space and to target centre backs and get a couple of yards is all he needed. His headers were as much to do with his intelligence as they were with his aerial ability. He had a sixth sense, a striker's nous to be in the right place at the right time. And left foot, right foot header, composure. Very rare to see a goal outside the box. I think I counted maybe 3 or 4. But even saying that they were outside the box, they were on the edge of the box.
Yeah.
You know, most of his goals were either tap-ins or
a little dribble
and a shot, or a tuck into the corner, headers, or another one of his goals was a back heel around the corner, or a back heel to the far post type of thing. He just had an instinct. He had a striker's instinct, and he had a centre back's aggression. You know, he had the aggression of a centre back and the intelligence of a poacher. And, you know, you'd harness that and do what you could with it, but you can't coach it. That's in you. You know, that dog of a player is in you. You know, you have to want it. And
he was also one of the leaders of in the team, and that probably was typified in the season where Liverpool went for all 4 trophies, you know, 1 or 2 domestic cups. But we had that period where Salah was away. You know, he was away with AFCON duty, and he just carried the team. And you know, he dominated Arsenal in the League Cup. He then did it in the league. He loved scoring against Arsenal. You know, he terrorised Arsenal, which is where the Fowler comparisons with him sometimes came with Jota the Slotter, which was he just loved playing Arsenal. I mean, what was your Ash? What would you say is your favourite Jota goal? Mine's probably the one away at Goodison where it's the ball's played behind him and he flicks it between his legs and then nails it near post. I think that is in the season we were trying to go for all 4 trophies. It was just, you know, off the cuff, like you said, like playing FIFA.
Yeah. I wanted to apologize for going off screen because the dogs were barking and I didn't want that to be a distraction. So that's why I just turned the camera off. There's so many to choose from. I loved the Atalanta game where he just kind of dominated that whole game. I think it's just the Leicester game after all the fans and after there was just so much build up to that, and I feel like there was chat beforehand about them giving us crap on social media as well. I feel like it was not just in the game. I feel like there was a lot of build up to this, and I feel like, again, I'm not from Liverpool, so I can't speak to the fact that there's these chants that just get under people's skin. But even though I'm not from Liverpool, I consider myself civilized enough to at least recognize that they're not appropriate. And every once in a while, you just kind of want to punch a fan that's singing a song like that. And I can't do that through the screen. But I feel like Jota's goal did that for me. And it's like, I don't know. He's just one of those players that he took all of the emotion that I had watching a game, especially as someone that watches from across the country, across the Atlantic, really. And everything that I wanted to happen, like, he would make it happen. Like, I wanted to shut up the Leicester fans, and he did it. I wanted to win in a 90th minute, like, you know, freak goal, and he did it. It's like, And there's something so, I think that's why I feel bonded to him. I think there's other people that have talked about this, about how with strikers, you end up bonding with them because there's that kind of explosion of emotion at the end where you're like, thank you for delivering what I've been staring at the screen, like begging for or praying for or whatever it is that you do. And I feel like Jota was the guy that delivered that. Like he was a lot of players deliver it, but in a way that Jota did it in a way that just felt so tangible and felt so relatable.
Yeah, Kev, what was your favourite Jota goal?
Well, before I get to that, there's a Madge Apple put a quote in there, and I think it's really, really good. She said, "When these things happen, I'm always reminded of a C.S. Lewis quotation. The pain is now part of the happiness then." And it is for a lot of us, because as much as the pain was there and it's still there, the grief, it does subside, and it does turn to the memories. And you look back at the memories of what he gave us. And my favorite goal, when I watched that compilation tonight, my favorite goal is not one that sticks out as a fantastic finish or anything like it. It was against Leeds, and the ball went from left to right and back to left and back again and back again. And each time he was in the 9 making runs. He was making runs inside the centre backs. He was coming short. He was spinning in behind, and he was going this way and that way and up. And he never stopped. He never stopped moving in the box. And eventually the ball came across and he tapped it in. And it was literally from 2 yards. He wouldn't have scored an easier goal, I'd say, ever. It was the simplest finish in the world, but it was a finish that came purely from his hard work. And I think it was a simple thing that reflected the way he played the game. His intelligence, willingness to work, willingness to run, willingness to be whatever the team needed him to be in that moment. That to me, I saw some brilliant finishes. The one against Tottenham when Richarlison celebrated and thought he was giving it the bigger than this and that, and he's like, "Nah, I've just been playing FIFA all night. Come here, I'm going to score a goal. Come on, sit down and play with the controller."
And he had as well.
It was hilarious.
Yeah,
it was hilarious.
I'll pass off to Gav to close out. I think the one thing probably is why I'll talk personally. There was a Jota thing that's probably hit hard. Is it sort of reminds you probably from your own life in this sort of ways, which is the phrase, which is tomorrow doesn't always come, and obviously I've learned this recently to my own detriment. Don't always put things off. Sometimes tomorrow doesn't always come, and it does sometimes remind yourselves of, you've got to make the most of what you have, and you've got to say to Diogo, he made the most of everything he had, both on and off the pitch, and he will be sorely, sorely missed. But listen, Gav, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, look, I've watched most of the show tonight. It's not an easy thing to do. So fair play to Chris and Ashley and Kev. Look, I've just dropped on at the end because, as you've seen with other podcasts, Redmen, the Anfield Rap and others, they've kind of had to nearly make a statement as to what way they're going to go following this. And I thought we should do the same. And not because, we're as big as Redmen or the Anfield Rap, but we have a very loyal viewership and listenership that probably are wondering what's happening. And in fairness, I've asked some questions as to what's going to happen now, and there's no right or wrong answer. In particular, I watched Neil Atkinson's video yesterday, I think it might have been, and he came across very well and he explained it very well. And I probably should just put that up and change the Anfield Rap's name to Wares, because he done it so well. But look, we've had questions as to what goes on now. Do we go back to normal? Do we continue on with stuff around Jota and stuff like that? And it's hard, I think if we continued on doing stuff with Jota, some people would be absolutely fine with it and some wouldn't. If we went completely back to normal, some people would be absolutely fine with it and some wouldn't. So I think you kind of have to find a happy medium here, and that's what we're going to try to do. So since the awful news of last Thursday morning, we've done 2 shows, one on Sunday and this one. The one and both of them being the same type of show as it should be. But moving forward, we're going to let things live for another couple of days. Liverpool are back in action. I think on Sunday. I think is it.
Sunday, yeah.
And we will be doing reaction to that show, reaction to football, because that's what we are. We are a football podcast, and I think a lot of people have asked, can we go back to talking football? And that's probably a way of helping. People grieve, and people react to these things in different ways, and they want to do different things in order to get through this. And if you want to talk football all the time, there's nothing wrong with that. So I think the football will dictate Sunday, and going into next week, we love doing transfer shows and what's the gossip and what's this. We're probably not going to do that next week because it's still very raw. But look, if Liverpool were to sign a player, we are going to do some reaction to that. People are going to want reaction to that. They're going to want to give their reaction to that. So we will do that if concrete stuff comes up, i.e. a signing is made in the next probably week or two before we get back into what we would call normal transfer stuff. With regards to other shows, we're gonna bring them in slowly, starting from next week, both on YouTube and both on Patreon, and we hope we do it right. And we're here. Listen, we're here. If you feel we're not doing it right, listen, there's no problem. You can contact us and have your say on it. We're not going to bite anyone's head off, but we feel like we are going to do it right. We're going to get back to some. It's never going to be normal. Let's be honest. I don't like that word normal. We're going to get we're going to try to get back into a place where we're okay to talk about football. But I was listening to Billy Hogan talking today on LFC TV, and what he was saying was that a lot of this will be managed, I suppose, by the family, of Diogo Jota and Andre Silva, because there's an awful lot of stuff being will be put forward to that family. And we know on Sunday there's going to be a huge tribute to them at Detail, and there's other ideas that the club have in mind, and we will react to them and bring you the news on them and let you have your say on them. So it's going to be dictated for, I would say, the next week to 10 days on things that are going to happen away from us, and we'll try our best to keep everybody up to speed and stuff like that. But my overall feeling on it is, no matter what we do, we're not going to make everyone happy, and it's a hard thing to try get the mix right. We feel we will get the mix right, in the sense that we will talk about football because football will be played. We will talk about transfers, but transfers, when transfers happen, we will talk about transfers and stuff in between, like, shows we have about past games and past players and stuff. They're going to come back over the next couple of weeks, and we will go from there. But the big thing I did take from Neil Atkinson, who, by the way, it was an excellent thing he done, and he was excellent on LFC TV. I messaged him to say so because I thought he was outstanding. But the big thing I did get from him, when he was speaking yesterday, was there is going to be a time when somebody says, we might need someone in attack, or we might need to make a sign in here, because of what's happened and stuff like that. And I echo what he said. He said, just give people the benefit of the doubt. They're not being crass. They're not being crude. They're not being, selfish. They're not being in any way that way. They're just talking as things are in the moment. So, if people want to talk a little bit more, whether that's in private on our Telegram group, wherever it might be, it's open for you. If people need to talk to us, by all means, message us. If they have suggestions on how we move forward, we're open to them as well. Because at the end of the day, look, this podcast is driven by the people that watch it. We do shows because of the people that watch and what they want to see, and we listen to them so much. So I just wanted to come on and tell people that, because people will be wondering, and I don't want to put out a show on Tuesday and people going, what are you doing? We'll try to give people plenty of notice as to what we're going to do, and if you want to watch it, by all means watch it. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. Whether it's about, if it's about Diogo Jota and you just can't go there, fine. If it's about football and you don't really want to go there, absolutely fine. It's completely up to you. But I just wanted to come on and tell people that, so people are a little bit clearer on where we are. And it's really hard. It is really hard to sit down and go, what's the plan? because you're not only thinking of yourself, you're thinking of the people on screen here, you're thinking of the people in the chat, you're thinking of the other lads that do shows as well, and you're trying to make sure that you're okay for everybody, you know. So I've been very tentative in, we'll do this show and this is what we'll do, and where usually it's so flows. This podcast flows. We just put it out there and we go, we're doing that, and everyone goes, cool, and off we go. It's been a little bit tentative over the last week, and so it should be, and it will be for the next 10 days to 2 weeks, I would say. But overall, we will let the football manage us, I suppose, and then we'll feed into, as people like to say, a normal kind of flow of shows and stuff like that. But as I said, watch it or don't watch it. Nobody's going to hold it against you. Nobody's going to get upset as to what view you have on us doing this show or us doing that show or not doing certain shows. We're not going to hold it against anybody, because let's be honest, if the last week hasn't kind of showed you that in the grand scheme of things, what shows we do or what we say or how we do it, is, if it doesn't show you that it's not really important, I don't really know what will show you what's important. I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest importance for me is, I suppose, that us here, people in the chat, others that do the show, and everybody that's to do with Liverpool or football or whatever, listens to each other. If you want to have a moan, let somebody have a moan. Let somebody give out. Let somebody blow off a bit of steam. By all means, let them do that. Look after each other, and yeah, look, we will never forget Diogo Jota, or his brother Andre Silva. We'll never forget them. They'll get plenty of mentions in the days, weeks, months, and years on this show and other shows and other media and whatever else it might be over the years. But in between that, we are going to have to do other bits that's not about them, and it's about football. And look, that's where we're going to go. I know I'm rambling now, because when you're trying to please everybody in your own head, you seem to ramble. But we're going to do our absolute very, very best. That's all I can guarantee from here on in.
Sorry, I've muted myself there. I was about to talk and muted myself. Good start. Right, so anything else we want to add before we go, Kev, Ash?
Can I just say thank you to everyone in Telegram? And we've got a Telegram chat that, everyone that's a member here is allowed to go over to Telegram. I encourage you to do so. It's been such a source of comfort just being able to chat with people and kind of voice thoughts, and the number of personal messages that I've gotten just to make sure that I'm okay. The number of just deep conversations that I've had with individuals on there who have talked about really sensitive topics. I just want to say thank you for helping me process this whole thing as well. I know that it takes a lot of courage to speak about some of these things, and I think that the community that we've built here is something that's so incredibly special, and I certainly don't take it for granted. And I think that especially now, I want to say thank you, because I think that sometimes we don't get the chance to say thank you to the people that mean something to us. So thank you to everyone that was on Telegram who has helped and continues to help. And if you have anything that you want to say, I encourage you to go on there and say it. But it's just a really, really phenomenal group of people that we have.
Kev, anything from yourself?
No, I can't follow that up. She's dead right. Phenomenal group of people who are there 24/7. Someone is always in there. And if you're struggling or something's on your mind and you just want to say it, just say it. There's no right and wrong. There's no rule book to this. We're all flying by the seat of our pants, figuring this out, because this ain't normal. This is just unusual, shocking, whatever adjective you want to use. We're figuring it out, and best will in the world, we'll do our best to figure it out, and we'll do it together. We'll look after each other along the way. I mean, the best message you can ever send someone in the morning into a group: everyone all right? Yeah, simple. And if someone isn't all right, they'll let you know. If they want to let you know, they'll let you know. But it's up to them. There's no, like I said, there's no rule book, and we just figure it out. That's all we can do.
Yeah, on that point, though, we'll let everyone go. Look after each other. Once again, thank you, Diogo Jota and Andre Silva. Never forgotten. always our number 20. Until then, guys, speak to you all very soon.